Have you ever seen someone so high, like so incredibly high, that even though they're only a few feet away from you, they're actually on another planet, maybe in another galaxy? This level of high is something that many of us try to achieve, but it's not something that you can do every day. And for most people, it's not something that you can do that often. I try to get this lit every Sunday when I do my edible stream on Twitch. And I've actually told this story about the highest guy I've ever seen on my Twitch stream a few times. So if you've never tuned into one of those, you're missing out. But several years ago, I saw probably the highest person that I might ever see in the rest of my life. It's hard to tell at this point, but this dude was so unbelievably high. We got a couple of doggos today. But let me paint the picture for you. This was several years ago. I lived in Florida at the time. I had been smoking for maybe a couple of years. I was trying to meet more people who smoked so I could get access to more people's plugs or suppliers because I was having issues sometimes. My guy would run out and I couldn't get stuff for a few days. I was trying to avoid all that. I was just trying to meet more people. So I would often have like a smoke sesh at my house. If I had a lot of bud, I'd invite some people over. And usually I would let people bring their friends. That's how we met the I Only Smoke Blue Dream guy. But it's how I also saw the highest person I've ever seen. So one day I'm smoking at my house. A buddy hits me up. He's like, hey, can I come over with my cousin? He says he's got some bud he can throw down and he's just trying to chill and smoke. But him and his cousin don't really have anywhere to smoke at the time. So I was just chilling, watching some TV, smoking already. I'm like, yeah, dudes, come on over. Let's blaze. Let's get lit. And one of the questions that I asked him since he was bringing his cousin over I never met, I was like, your cousin smoked before, right? He's cool. Because even though I like smoking with people, I didn't like to smoke with people who'd never smoked before. There's a couple of weird instances, so I usually just tried to smoke with people who knew how to handle their shit. But he assured me that his cousin had smoked before and that he'd sesh with his cousin multiple times. And they really let me know that it wasn't going to be an issue. It was a fucking issue. That guy never smoked before. I didn't know this. So it's me, my friend, his cousin. We're all just sitting in my living room, passing a bong around. I think I might have had a bubbler and a bong at the time. I had a few weird pieces. Sometimes I'd bring out a few things when I had people over to sesh, just to make it more interesting. And that way we're all not waiting for one piece to be available. But I remember his cousin was struggling a little bit to hit the bong. Like, he kind of watched us do it. But I remember when it was the cousin's turn, the person that I'd never smoked with before, when it was his turn to take a hit, he looked like a little bit puzzled, you know? But they assured me, he's like, oh, no, he smoked before. He just never used a glass bong, bro. He's never used a bong before. He smokes joints and pipes and blunts. He just never used a bong before. So I think my friend lit the bowl for his cousin, was like, yeah, just pull on it. Like, did the whole, I'm going to light it for you and then pull it for you. And the guy who was hitting it, his cousin didn't clear it. It was like still full of smoke. He's like coughing on the hit. It wasn't that big of a hit, but when you're not ready for it, you're not familiar with it, sometimes the smoke hits you at a weird time and it's going to make you cough just by surprise. So he kind of coughs almost instantly on the hit and like it's still filled with smoke. I'm looking at the piece filled with smoke like, that's just getting really, really stale. Like, he's going to clear it, right? So I just say something, you know, I'm like, oh, don't let that smoke get too stale, ha ha ha. And then my friend is like, oh yeah, buddy, just go ahead and finish this. So the new guy I'd never met kind of settles down from coughing a little bit and then finishes the chamber, but he's just coughing even more, coughing up a storm, like violently coughing. It wasn't like a monster hit, but dude was coughing like he just smoked an entire eighth in one hit or something. Well, at this point, I realize I've been a terrible host and I haven't offered anybody any water or anything. We're all just sitting there, just dry hitting it. No sips before we rip, just raw dogging life. So I go grab some water cups. I got one from myself and then my friend and then his cousin. And the new kid, the highest guy I'd ever seen, well, he takes this water cup. He takes a sip out of it. He's settling down from that one bong rip he took where he's just still coughing off the stale smoke. He's like finally settling down. I was getting him the water to help him like ease up on the smoking a little bit because you need water sometimes. So he takes a few sips and then he rests the water in between his legs on my couch. And after maybe like a moment or two of us just watching TV, he slowly like fades off. His head leans back into the couch. His eyes close and he's just gone. Dude is out. And then like a moment later, me and my buddy notice that he's just passed out. And, you know, I think it's funny at the time. And we're like, yo, we should fuck with him a little bit, maybe do something. We didn't really do anything crazy. I think his cousin just ended up making like a loud clapping noise or something like behind him to see if he would wake up and freak out about it, which he really did. So his cousin does this clap, wakes this guy up. He just snaps back into reality. He hears the clap. His eyes open up as wide as they can get. They don't just open up slightly. They open wide. from 0 to 100. And he looked just a little bit panicked. And then like a second later, he stands up really quick. He goes from sitting and he just stands up really quick. And that water cup was sitting in between his legs. When he stands up, it's mostly full. He only took a few sips before he passed out. He just launches it on the ground and just spills water all over the floor. Like a good 12 ounces of water on the floor. Out of like a big old plastic cup I gave him. Just spills all of it all over the floor. And he realized he spilled. He was just asleep like 5 seconds ago. But he realized he spilled and made a mess. His eyes are still just like wide. Like he's doing this the whole time. And he starts feeling his lap. He's just checking himself. I'm like, what the fuck is going on, dude? What is this guy doing? Why is he just feeling? What is he doing? He looks at me. He looks over at his cousin. He looks back at me. He's like, I'm dry. I'm dry. Like he knows he spilled the water. I think he thought he spilled it all over himself. There was something missing. There was a connection missing. But he is so blown away by the fact that he wasn't wet. He just spilled water. He was so blown away that he was dry that it was blowing my mind. And there's no water. I spilled it, but I'm dry. He keeps going on about he's dry. There's water all over my floor. I'm confused as fuck, right? Does he not know he spilled? There's water on the fucking floor. It's just rolling across the wood floor I got. I'm looking at somebody whose brain is exploding. I can see the explosions going off. There's smoke coming out of his ears. His mind was so blown. He's just like, I'm dry. He couldn't stop being blown away by the fact that he was dry for like a couple of moments. His cousin was like, dude, you spilled the water on the floor. None of it got on you. And he's like, I know I'm dry. None of it got on me. It was just like a few minutes of convincing this guy he needed to calm down. He spilled the water, but it wasn't on himself. He couldn't wrap his head around the situation. It was like a loud clap. He stands up, spills, and doesn't know why the spill that he spilled wasn't on him. The cup was in between his legs. He stands up and just launches it onto the floor. And I'll literally never forget this because that's one of the highest things I've ever seen somebody do. We've all seen really, really high people, but there's some like things that you do that activity, that action itself is just so high. Like stopping at a stop sign, waiting for it to turn green. Like that in itself is just such a high action. You can only do that when you're intergalactically high. That is one of the highest things I've ever seen a person do. And then he was just blown away by the fact that none of the water he spilled was on himself. It's really funny when I think about it. But, you know, I had to go dry water off the wood floor. They didn't actually tell me right there. My buddy who brought his cousin over, I think told me like a few days later. He was like, yeah, sorry about that. My cousin actually never smoked before. I just wanted a session. I thought he could handle it. So it was a little wild. That's one of the reasons I didn't like to smoke with people who'd never smoked before. But honestly, I'm so glad I did on this day because that dude was just so unbelievably high. I'll literally never forget it. Well, there you have it. Come get high with me on Twitch. I get super lit every night after 9 p.m. Eastern, but on Sunday we get down with some edibles. So come fly to space with me. And if you want to hear about the highest that I've ever been, I told a story about a year ago. Check this video right here. This is the highest I've ever been. Have a lit day, my dudes.